Direct Service Garage Doors, we are your one-stop shop for all things garage door. From garage door repair and broken spring replacement to new garage doors and openers, we do it all. We're proud to be among the highest-rated local garage door companies in all of Northwest Arkansas. Our highly trained technicians are available 24 hours a day at no extra cost to you. So if you have an emergency, call us today, 479-203-5880, or visit our website at directservicenwa.com. Don't wait days. We'll fix it now. At Direct Service Garage Doors, we are your...
All right. Yo, what's going on, Arkansas Razorback fans? Welcome. This feels like a Friday to me because tomorrow we won't be live. I'm going to start my time off, if you will. We all know I'm not going to, but I'm going to do my best to try and take it easy this weekend. It's been kind of nonstop. Of course, we know there's going to be all kinds of portal stuff going on. How you guys doing? Welcome. We have a poll up. Let me know if you can hear me too. We are on StreamYard, so it's a little bit different. Sound can sometimes be a little different. We have a poll on Test Talk with Ty community page. If you guys want to take it, you can go check it out. It's, will KJ Jefferson be a Heisman candidate come after the 2023 season concludes? Will he be a finalist? Will he get the trip to New York? So, yeah. All right. First off, before we bring on Blake Lovell, shout out to Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all of you. I'm going to make sure this link gets sent out there. Patreon supporters, I appreciate you guys a lot. Really do. Show sponsors, of course. The Odd Soul, located on Emma Street here in Springdale, Arkansas. Great IPAs on tap. Calzones, wonderful pies, just great food, great atmosphere, great environment, great staff, good people over there at the Odd Soul. If you're in town, maybe you're coming up for a baseball game when the Razorbacks return to Baum Walker. Go, hey, Springdale's not that far. It's literally the next town over. Go check out the Odd Soul. Direct Service Overhead, the Garage Door Company. Offer same-day services, quality parts, affordable outcomes. You maybe just need damage. You got a dent or something. I think maybe they can help you out there. Or just completely need to replace your garage door. Obviously, they can do that for you. Give them a call. I don't know. I'm becoming a garage door enthusiast with all these pictures they post. I share them on our community page or on the Discord page. 501-244-3667. They can kind of help you out with quite a bit. I say a ding. It's like, this is what happened to my neighbor, Alex. His door, I don't know if it fell off track, but it looked like it was collapsing within itself. And somehow they were able to fix it and make it look really good. And they did it at an affordable price. And of course, the Apex Tattoo Studio, located in Rogers, Arkansas, 201 South 19th Street. Again, we've got artwork available in our Discord. Walk-ins are welcome. Tap out sessions are available. Mention Test Talk with Ty and you get a discount. 10% discount. 479-278-2694 if you want to call and set up an appointment with the Apex Tattoo Studio. All right. What is time off? Well, you work retail, Austin. There's no such thing. No such thing. And I think you're probably salary. Is that right? So you definitely have no time off. We'd have to go 10-2, 9-3 in order to have KJ in the Heisman discussion, says Marcus Murdoch. That's it. That's it right there. It's not just what KJ is limited to in terms of his play or what his ceiling is. That can be all fine and dandy, but being the best player on a 6-6, 7-5 team is not going to get you to New York. That's why I said what I said on Twitter, and it lit up, and what a debate, quote unquote debate on Twitter. Really hit a nerve with some people when I said, more or less I said, I think not. I don't think it's a realistic expectation Razorback fans should have with KJ getting the trip to New York. I think it's going to be limited because, again, it's not just him. It's about the guys in front of him. The offensive line. It's about Dan Enos and putting the offense in the best position to have the best level of success. Again, that does come down to KJ, but it also comes down to the run game, the wide receivers. What's happening at tight end? Again, can the offensive line help KJ out? Can the defense hold up their end of the bargain? Definitely can't be anything like they were the last couple of years, especially last year. It's a team effort to get someone to New York. It's a team effort. And that's part of why I'm a little suspicious of him getting that opportunity. I don't think it's impossible, just unlikely. All right. Coming up, we've got Blake Lovell here. He's going to help us sort out the madness, the absolute anarchy happening. Let me get the boom, and then boom, and then boom. There we go. Blake, how you doing, man?
Just bored. There's nothing going on, so just bored. There's no one transferring. There's only a couple thousand or something. So, yeah, not much happening, man. So
yeah, just kind of relaxing. Right?
Yeah, just relaxing.
There's nothing going on. I won't hold it against you for wearing that Braves hat, but yeah.
You got to give me a little something after tracking about 75 transfers so far in the SEC, maybe something like that. So,
okay. Yeah, that's fair.
You got to give me something. So.
Listen, man, the Cardinals are they're a level of bad right now that I don't know. I'm hoping they can go to the farm league, pull up a pitcher or two. I don't know, or maybe they can convince God to come pitch for them on the mound. I really don't know. They've got a lot of questions.
Honestly, they just need some transfers, if you ask me. So just get Eric Musselman to go grab a few transfers. That's it.
Eric Musselman, that's great. Yeah, get him some
problem solved.
Pull some guys out of the NCAA transfer out of the portal.
Problem solved.
All right, everybody, you know who he is. He's Blake Lovell from Southeastern 14. Again, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to join us. We'll get this sorted out. I want to start off first. What are your initial thoughts about Walsh looking like probably not going to come back?
Yeah, I guess I always say I'm never surprised by anything at this point. But I guess when you look at the roster and kind of where the numbers are at, I certainly can understand why people would point that way, and seemingly that being a possibility. But yeah, that's what's made this whole thing interesting, is like, you've known the guys that have still have decisions to make, and then it's like, all right, well, here comes another one in the transfer portal. Oh, and then there's another one, and then there's another one, and so it's like, all right, well, now you're starting to look at it and say, realistically, you kind of understand the numbers, have to be what they have to be, right? Like, you can't skirt your way around that. Like, the number has to be, this is how many scholarships we have, this is how many people are going to be here, and so trying to figure that part out. Yeah, so I don't know. I always hesitate to have a prediction because I'm like, this is we're talking about. Anything can happen here. But yeah, I get why people are probably leaning that way a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss his defense. I'm gonna miss what he could do, off the ball. Little too handsy at times for Walsh. A little too handsy. Got into foul trouble really quick. You could always rely on him getting into some foul trouble within the first few minutes he's on the floor, whether it's coming off the bench or
that's
whatever.
The SEC, though, right? That's very pretty much everyone in the SEC. So
that is true. That is a common theme that everyone, all 14 teams can attest to. It's like the guy that just happens to be the most prone, right? And in this situation, it's Jordan Walsh.
Yeah.
Devo Davis is another one. I got to say, that is the guy. I mean, clearly, I know a lot of Hog fans are probably going to agree. I think that's the guy that I felt like I wanted to come back so bad for Arkansas.
No.
Just a great defender.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's just I think the skill set that he had has continued to just improve, and like to where he's just, like we said, he became a guy that was clearly one of the better, lockdown defenders in terms of just guarding on the perimeter, but also someone that, continued to prove that he can make big plays at the right time on the offensive side. I mean, you weren't counting on him to go out and hit 8 threes a game or anything, but yeah, I mean, he became like that versatile guy that you just had to have on the floor. And, I mean, we've always said that about the must teams over the past 3 years, the ones that have gotten to the second week of the tournament. You've been able to identify who those guys are that, well, they have to be on the floor the majority of the game. And we're talking 32, 34 plus minutes sometimes to give them the best chance to win. And, as we know, he's not someone that tends to play 10 guys regularly. He's going to have his 6 or 7, and that's going to be about it. And so, yeah, I mean, he will have to go down as one of I would think, a favorite for Arkansas fans. No matter what. I mean, just unbelievable what he's done. So
leading scorer in 7 games this year. 6 of those came in SEC play. One of those, actually the first game in SEC play, which came at a loss, 60-57. I still don't know how this happened on the road to LSU, but he led with 16 points. He would go on and lead in 5 more SEC games in scoring, which nobody saw coming because he didn't have that reputation. And like you said, he kind of, he came up big in some big games and came up big in some big games in which they lost. They also, I think of the 6 games, I think they lost 4 where he was the leading scorer.
yeah.
He even led in rebounds several times. Led, of course, in assists a few times this year. And then he had the 25-point performance against Kansas. So they got a little bit of, for year 3 straight years, they got that postseason magic out of him. Doesn't look like they're going to get a 4th. Of course, we're so far away from next postseason, but that's already a guy you think about who's come through for them so big in postseason play. That's already a guy you're like, well, damn it, they're going to be without him. So what does that mean now? Like, Hog fans kind of felt like they could rely on him. And Ricky Council, who had 18 points and 10 rebounds. He had a double-double in game 1 against Illinois. That's another guy. Like, the roster turnover is insane.
Well, I mean, here's the thing for me, and I know I've said this, and I'm sure there's some people in here who've watched the other videos, and like I repeat this, but like I think at this point you like you look at it from that standpoint, you're like, all right, well, there's obviously a lot of questions because anytime you flip the roster year over year, I mean, you're gonna have questions, right? No matter how good is the group that you're bringing in, like there's all right, well, who's gonna replace this guy who did that last season? Who's gonna replace this guy who did that? And no one's ever the same player, but I think it's like Muss has just earned the benefit of the doubt at this point that the next Devo Davis, not saying they're going to be exactly him, but he's on this roster somewhere. We just may not know who it's going to be yet. Like, it's going to be that guy that ultimately, all right, well, here's the guy who winds up playing 35 minutes and, can be a lockdown defender, just grows his game to the point to where, all right, then he can take over. I don't know who that's going to be. Could it be not the same player, but could it be a Tremont Mark type guy who comes over from a great defensive team? He's going to defend, can step up and make shots offensively. I don't know, but that's just like you assume that Muss is going to figure it out. There will be stretches where it probably doesn't look pretty, no matter how talented the roster is, because we've seen that the last, a couple seasons, right? Like they're going to hit a stretch where they don't play well. But at the end of the day, everyone's hoping that they figure it out when they figure it out in March. And this team's done that 3 years in a row now. So,
Well, you mentioned Tremont Mark, 6'5". I think some places have him listed like 6'6". I think he's about 6'5", 200 pounds.
It's interesting how heights range, like in many different ways. It's so fascinating to me.
And I'll get told, someone will tell me later, like, well, he's actually, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, okay, well, this site says he's 6. One site has him at 6'2", and another site has him at 6'4". So I mean, I don't know, but regardless, pretty lengthy guard. I'm gonna just say 6'5" because that's what ESPN has him listed at 6'5", 195 pounds. Out of Houston, as you mentioned, 10 points, 5 rebounds, almost about 2 assists a game. Did get about 29 minutes a game. One thing in particular that stands out, not just him, but almost every one of the players that they've grabbed out of the portal, and I know you've talked about this on your show. These guys are all like 79% free throw shooters or above.
Yeah.
That was a problem for Arkansas in 2022-23.
Yep.
Got some guys that are scorers too. I mean, it feels like they're addressing some of the needs.
Everything I've seen, and like you get the prayer emoji on Twitter. I see that a lot with Arkansas fans. Please just give me a free throw shooter or a 3-point shooter. That's all I want. And luckily, I think, I mean, you talk about, I think that's the common theme. Not all of these guys, but the majority of them. And like I'm pulling up my notes here because like I do this day by day, like logging like who I'm talking about on this day, and I'm like, and I got to go through Arkansas. I'm like, I remember I've got like 6 days dedicated to Arkansas here. And I'm like, so pretty much the majority of the guys they brought in, yes, like they're good free throw shooters. They got guys who can go out and prove they can make threes. Now, some of the percentages, I think that's always a guessing game sometimes because you got to remember too, when you come into the SEC, you're playing a lot of great defensive teams with a lot of length that can guard on the perimeter. I would assume percentages are going to go down a little bit, 3-point wise for some of these guys, but they've at least proven they can knock down those shots. So I think they got a lot more options from 3 now with this team. This team, I would be very surprised if this team next season does not shoot the ball significantly better than the team this season, like just given what they brought in. If not, then I have no idea what to say, right? Because I think just looking at the numbers, you would have to think this team is going to be a much improved shooting team, whether that's from the 3-point line, whether that's from the free throw line. So I think that's clearly, and that was kind of one of the things I repeat is just that to me seemed like a clear focus. We're going to rebuild our roster, but my goodness, we are going to. And I think all the other SEC teams are catching on now. And it's like, and again, maybe it's just because I've said it so much like this past season. I'm like, this league cannot shoot. And I'm just like, all you have to do if you're an SEC coach, go out and find 1 or 2 guys who can shoot the ball. And if you can do that, Missouri did it, right? Missouri, I mean, in all honesty, I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but Missouri probably had no business being as good as they were. But they had the advantage because they had guys who could shoot the ball. And, a lot of other SEC teams outside of Alabama could not shoot the ball consistently. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really, I think that's it. And I think, obviously, with the guys they brought in, they got a lot of guys who can shoot. And so I think that's a significant addition, no matter how you look at it. So,
by the way, any shots you want to take at Mizzou?
Oh, I know. That's what I was like. I have to remember, I do a lot of Arkansas shows, do a lot of Mizzou shows. So sometimes I'm like, all right, I got to make sure I play to which one am I on? Oh yeah, I'm on Arkansas. Okay. Well, you know what? Missouri, they had no business. No. Yes, I understand. So
yeah, not a lot of Mizzou love here, even though I'm with people. I still think that's a manufactured rivalry. It's hard to buy into that, but considering Arkansas does tend to live rent-free in their heads, I guess you could say we do the same to some capacity, as I'm doing right now. But
look, I see Cody's comment down here. He's already coming at me with my love for Dennis Gates. Look, if you come on, you all understand. Oh, no. I'm trying to hold back here on my love for Dennis Gates, but I will not get into this too much on the Arkansas-based show. I promise. But I appreciate it, Cody. I'll save that for another video.
That's too funny.
I'll save it.
It carried over. It followed you here, Blake.
I'll save you here just for you guys. That's how much I love you guys. I'm not going to talk about Dennis Gates. So
let me ask you this, and we'll keep on because again, there's so much portal chaos, anarchy. As I put in the thumbnail, I use the actual anarchy sign.
I saw that. So
I'm sure someone's going to get after me on that. Is if the portal, let's go back in time 5 years, we've had enough Musselman exposure. We have a little bit of exposure of him as a college basketball coach without the portal being the way that it is. Would he still have the kind of success that he has? And I don't mean just recruiting. I mean on the floor, the postseason runs in March. Do you think he would still be at that level?
I think so. And the reason I would say that is because I feel like he, to me, is someone that's just such a well-connected guy that I think he'd still be able to put the right team in place. But obviously, I mean, as we talked about before, I mean, he was I don't hesitate to, he was the leading guy when it came to transfers. Like, he was the first one started to look out. And when he was at Nevada, he made it very clear that, this was a path, and no one at the time was really, I mean, obviously the rules have loosened up now to the point to where there's a lot more flexibility. But they weren't as flexible at that point, right? But he still found a way to get guys in there. And of course, you had guys who had to sit, but eventually he's like, all right, this will pay off for us once these guys are on the floor. And so, I mean, it's a good question. It's hard to know, but I do think just because of his background, he would probably still be having success, just because I think I don't know what again, I think it's just the background itself. I mean, you're talking about a guy, think about all the different jobs he's had and all the different places he's been, and just the connections and the staff. And so I feel like he would still be getting players. It just, as I said, it'd be a little different if that was not in the cards. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and you said it there, he's well-traveled, and he's coached G League. He's coached in the NBA. He's an attraction for those type of coaches that want to come here, and guys that he's had connections with at those levels. And that's a nice sell to high school recruits, or whatever. I think he probably would, but then again, trying to separate the recruiting aspect and just on the floor, I think he just knows how to piece it together one way or another.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. This year it was a little later. It was literally the NCAA tournament when they kind of figured it out. But I think that speaks to him as a coach. And then, of course, there is the recruiting aspect, where I do think he would still recruit high level 4 and 5 stars. I do. I think he would bring them here. It also helps that Arkansas basketball does have history, despite the fact it took them 20 years to rediscover what they're capable of. That's still just so mind-boggling to me as someone who grew up in Fayetteville. The expectations every year were like, yeah, of course we're going to the Elite Eight, maybe the Final Four, of course. To then my high school years and beyond into my adult years, it's like, can we just make the NCAA tournament? So bizarre. But I'm glad we're here nonetheless. It's because of Eric Musselman. No matter what the haters on Twitter, you should have seen the feed yesterday, Blake. It was insane.
Oh, boy. No thanks.
Golly, like we mentioned in DMs, how toxic Twitter can become.
Hey, if you look at my Twitter timeline, I have not. Let me pull this up. I have not actually tweeted. Now, I've retweeted, but I have not tweeted since the national championship game.
Wow.
That's kind of what I do every year. People sometimes are you're not following the SEC anymore. I'm like, yes, I just don't tweet about it. Just go to the YouTube channel. You'll see the videos every day, pretty much.
I don't either.
I don't tweet about it. I'm over it. So it's very strange. It didn't used to be that way. I used to feel like every day I've got to tweet something, right? Every transfer I've got to have 2 sentences on in the SEC. But I'm like, do I want to do that, or do I want to drive myself crazy, or do I just want to, do our videos and be good with that? So,
that's where I'm at with it. The sky is blue today.
Yes.
And then your thread is followed by.
Well, hang on a second. Hang on a second, Ty. It's not blue. It's actually a light shade of this, and actually it looks like more of a North Carolina blue today. So are you saying you're a North Carolina fan?
Yeah.
Or do you actually, like Arkansas? No.
Are you racist? Are you racist because you think the sky is blue? That is what it is, and I can't stand it. I'm the same way with Facebook. All I do on Facebook anymore is I just post memes. That's it. I'm the meme guy on Facebook. Someone will be like, "Wait, you do what? You do what for your day to day?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have a show." No one knows. My Twitter should be bigger as far as the following. I don't tweet anything there anymore. I tweeted literally the most common sense take, I think, on KJ and the Heisman. And it became the most just ridiculous, toxic. It's still going to this day. I woke up this morning and there's still replies, and that's fine. That's part of it. I get it. Show them the feed. I'm not going to show them the feed.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Facebook. Don't get me started. I want to say I post on Facebook. I think it's like a joke now. I post on Facebook quarterly. It's a payment. I literally post on there quarterly. It's once every 3 or 4 months. I'm serious. I could not tell you the last time I pulled up my Facebook, what's it, the timeline, the home, you actually, and I'm not joking when I say this. It's probably been 8 years. Not even joking. I haven't looked at anyone else's. I just post random jokes on there like quarterly. Like it's just a joke every
Yeah.
quarter. Like, so you're getting comedy out of me at least once every 3 months. Like that. I feel like that I'm adding value to your life as a Facebook friend if you just have that.
I'm so glad to hear you say all this because I'm not the only one that does it. I've had this discussion with a couple of other like local, like the media types here about that. And Otis Kirk, who's I have on all the time here. I worked with him at Hogville. He just tweets about the Lakers nonstop, and God love him. He loves his Lakers, and me being a Celtics fan, I have to bite my tongue. But okay, getting back to the meat and potatoes here. Is there anyone on so far that has transferred to Arkansas, whether it be Ellis, Davenport, Battle? You mentioned Tremont Mark a minute ago. We can't forget about Menefield, I think's how you pronounce his last name. Any of these guys stand out more than the other? Is there one where you're like, that is going to be the guy that will?
Well,
he's going to do something great.
I do think Mark I'm most maybe intrigued by just because I think the defensive element, I feel like he is someone that, like I said, I think he's proven that he can look, if you're playing for Kelvin, I mean, you've got to play defense, right? Like we know those Houston teams, they're all built around defense. And so I think it's not just that aspect of, he can defend, but I also really just look at it. I mean, look, if you watch the Auburn game, right? I mean, in the NCAA tournament, he stepped up and just made a lot of big plays in that game. That's a game Auburn looked like they were about to cruise to a win. But Mark stepped up, made a big, he just made a lot of big plays. And I think starting 37, I think he started all 37 games last year, right? Played 30 minutes per game on a team that was a number 1 seed. So I think there's so much value in adding a guy like that. Didn't make a ton of threes, but still, I think, again, he's proven that he can at least step out and make a shot if he needs to. So, yeah, I mean, I think he was one of the top transfers out there. But, I say that, and I think maybe the L. Ellis one to me, and it's really all because of this. I just want to see – I'm excited for him because – and I said this in the video I did on him, right? I said, I'm excited that this guy gets to go from playing one of the biggest disappointing teams that we've probably seen, or I know Louisville fans have ever seen, to now getting to play for a team that has done nothing but succeed in the NCAA tournament the past 3 seasons. To go from a team that won 4 games in a power conference in the ACC. I mean, this guy is so. Remember, he's what, a 2-time JUCO All-American, goes to Louisville. And I think there were some people initially, and like we just talked about, you're always going to have somebody who picks apart certain things. But they're like, oh, well, his percentages. I'm like, his percentages on a team that literally every team they played knew that there was one guy that could beat them. There was only one, and that was him. Like, everybody could go out and game plan knowing that, all right, yeah, they've got some other guys who can do this or that, but we know that if we were to shut this guy down or just keep him below 20 points, right? Like, because it would have took, in a lot of instances, it needed a lot more for Louisville to have a chance to beat anybody. But to be able to do that and still put up good numbers, again, one of the very few bright spots on a team that was just a complete mess. He's just a playmaker. Like, he can make plays. And I think that sometimes people are like, well, yeah, he can make plays for Louisville, a team that wasn't very good. No, like if you watch guys play, like you know that it translates. And I think he is one that obvious playmaker. When he has the ball in his hands, I would trust that he's going to be able to make plays. So not to knock any of the other guys, like you said, they're all intriguing in their own way. But I think those 2 guys specifically I'm looking at and really very curious to see how they're used and kind of what that adjustment is like for different reasons. Obviously, one goes from one of the best teams in the country, one goes from one of the worst teams in the country. But how do they kind of fit into everything else that's around them for a team that we fully expect to be, an SEC title contender? So
Ellis, who got 36 minutes a game, 41%.
Yeah.
Almost 32% outside, 81% at the free throw line. Again, I harp on that so much because Arkansas, and you know this, being not only just a defensive team, but a team that likes getting to the free throw line as they have under Musselman.
Right. Yeah. And
they couldn't hit shots. I forgot what they finished. I want to say 68% or something with the postseason included. I think maybe 69%. And they bring in guys that are 79, 80. Who was it? One of them's like 89% at the free throw line, which is ridiculous. Like, this is the stuff I'm looking for. Yeah, you'd love some more, guys that can knock down three ball. And they may have grabbed one of those guys. Maybe one of these guys, like you said, they all bring something different to the table, and maybe a couple of them might be similar in one way, but maybe they might be better as a two-way player or just a defensive player. I'm like you. I really am intrigued by Battle and Ellis. We're getting questions about needing a big. Is that? I mean, I know Hunter Dickinson's out there. I do not think he ends up being a Razorback. I think it sounds like it's all a done deal that he's going to head.
I don't either. Yeah,
he's heading to KU, right? Isn't that his?
Seems like there's momentum there. Yeah. So
Khalil Ware, who ended up going to Indiana.
Indiana needed somebody because they missed out on a couple other guys they thought they were going to get. So at least they should be happy they got him because, they've missed out on a couple big ones here recently.
That seems bizarre going to Indiana to some degree because, I don't know. I just think he had the pick of the litter and he chose Indiana. And I know Indiana at their height, they're one of the, they're a great basketball program. But, I mean, in this era, I don't know. And not that I ever thought he was coming to Arkansas, by the way. I don't want to get into all that, but
I think we talked about that last time. We were like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we did, didn't we? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, don't know. So,
But should they? I mean, obviously that feels like the natural position, right? They're so heavy with guards. They do have Bay Fall coming in. They do have, of course, Brazil coming back, but obviously they need to go after a true 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do think obviously, let's say they don't get somebody that maybe add. I think the Brazil return, yes, like he's not your traditional, center, right? Like he's not going to be up against some of the other guys that you're going to see around the league that are maybe more that mold. But I do think getting him back will at least alleviate, let's say you think there's a lack of depth there. But I just think his return certainly helps that in a significant way in terms of just having a guy like we talked about was going to be a breakout star. I mean, he already kind of was. You could tell. I mean, the wheels were turning early on in the season. You could just it was very clear that he was going to be someone that was going to help them in so many different areas. And so I think maybe that's something they could lean on a little bit more. I'm curious to see what the SEC as a whole looks like. And I know, like I always say this, guys, but like I know you play other games outside the SEC. Those are important, but like I always do try to just really compare it because now, I mean, you think about it, right? Like next season, Texas and Oklahoma joining, we know that the schedule is going to expand. So like, you really are comparing this now just to, okay, SEC wise, like what's the other teams look like? Who are they going to be the great big? We talked about that was a great year for big men in the SEC this past season. This next year, the more I look at kind of around the league, I think guards are important, right? But I think you're going to see some teams that maybe not necessarily going to play smaller, but there are going to be a lot of teams relying more so, on their perimeter play versus I'm curious to see what the big man depth looks like in the league. Because I think this past season, it was really, I know I'm going to forget someone, but it's like Castleton, Sheboy, KJ Williams, keep going up and down the list. Again, I know I'm going to forget some people, but so like, I think that's something you have to keep in mind. I'm curious to see what they do. If they get somebody, who am I to ever doubt the possibility that Arkansas is going to land a transfer? But I do think there's certainly a possibility there that's the clear route you would go if you're going to add another to the mix. But even if they don't, I don't know that I would still be that concerned just because I think Brazil's return with Fall, Mitchell, I think they'd still be okay in that regard. Because I think no matter what, your offense is flowing through the guys you just added. And that's, Ellis, that's Battle, that's Mark, that's, all the other guys, Davenport, Mayfield. So you got enough offensively to make up for it there, but it wouldn't hurt to have another body probably just in the front court. So
how much, talking about the change of the league to some degree and looking at the bigs and the fact that the SEC was ironically a defensive basketball conference. That used to be the reputation in football too. Just defense. That's kind of changed over the years, but you look at the quality of coaches. Now you have Beard at Ole Miss. You still have, I mean, say what you want about Bruce Pearl and how Auburn kind of underachieved this year, despite what we know what they did a year ago. Musselman doing what the expectations are. And of course, you're still going to have Nate Oates at Alabama and Barnes at Tennessee. The quality of coaches in this conference, whatever you think about them, scumbags, whatever people tell me, the pedigree here it just keeps getting better. And that's had a slow change over the years dynamically. It's had a change over just the talent level of these coaches, and it's bringing the conference up as far as its reputation. Yeah. Someone like Beard, is that automatically like year one you're going to see that change at Ole Miss? Because I think it's probably going to take a couple of years, but kind of your thoughts on that situation down in Oxford.
Yeah, I think by year two, I think you'll have them. I don't know if they're going to be, I don't know that I'd project top 10, but I think by year two, they're going to be probably an NCAA tournament type team. Like, I would be surprised if they're not. And like you said, it's no matter what you think about the situation or whatever, I mean, he's going to be able to get players. And that's the name of the game now, right? Like, it's every offseason, you're changing your team. He's going to be able to go out and get players. I mean, I think he's already put together a decent enough roster to this point that, again, I'd be surprised if they're a tournament team this season, just because it's not, I always say, it's not what you have necessarily, it's what everybody else has. And, as I'm looking around, I'm like, oof, I don't know how they jump that team or that team or that team. And so it's, you're going to have a surprise team like always, right? I mean, that's just the way it works. Like, we thought A&M be pretty good. We didn't think A&M be 15-3 in the SEC this year. Missouri was definitely a surprise. Florida was a disappointment. So, you're going to have those every kind of season. Somebody's going to surprise. Somebody's going to be a disappointment. And Ole Miss would probably be in that category of potential surprises just based on what they're doing. But, yeah, you look – I think you point to everywhere in the league now. And I feel like I know people had some issues with Matt McMahon's first season at LSU, but I think he's had one of the better off seasons, in terms of what he's done with the roster. Like, he's rebuilding the roster with guys that I think are really going to come in and help them right away. Now, as we always say, someone's got to finish 1 through 14, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know where LSU finished. I don't think they finished at the bottom, but then I'm like, well, who does? Right now, I think there are still some other teams that got some work to do roster-wise, but, like, I still feel pretty good about Lamont Paris getting South Carolina to a respectable point. I don't know that South Carolina is ever going to be an SEC title contender, just because I think they're starting way further behind than everybody else. Vanderbilt's got to revamp their roster. Georgia, yeah, I know everybody's like, well, Mike White, they won 16 games, right? But
yeah,
think about where Georgia was at. They bottomed out. Like, we haven't seen many SEC teams just completely bottom out. Vanderbilt bottomed out several years ago. Georgia bottomed out. LSU, I don't know that I would even – they go 2-16 in the conference. I still don't know that they just completely bottomed out. They just couldn't score. And so I think when you look at it as a whole, yes, as long as the upper echelon of coaches stays there, every offseason you're going to have to jump Eric Musselman, Nate Oates, John Calipari, Rick Barnes, Buzz Williams, Bruce Pearl.
Buzz, yeah.
It's like, keep going down the list. And it's a challenge.
It didn't used to be that way in this conference.
No.
They really didn't. This might be, and I don't know SEC history. My history goes back to when Arkansas joined in 92. That's where my history starts with the SEC basketball. I know Kentucky was Kentucky. And I can remember when Arkansas, listening to people talk about that era now, say that, when Arkansas joined, it gave Kentucky someone to deal with. And of course they did. Arkansas went on and had pretty good time in the 90s up until the late 90s. It didn't used to be this way. You didn't used to look,
it used to be like the top 3 teams, you pretty much had a good idea of who the top 3 were going to be, but 4 through 12, which eventually became 4 through 14, they had no clue. Like, it's like you just assumed those were going to be NIT type level teams that maybe they get an NCAA tournament, right, and win a game or two. But you knew pretty much for a while there, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, Tennessee, of course, had their years. Other teams, Vanderbilt. I think we can't forget, like, Vanderbilt for a while there was pretty steady and consistent in terms of just usually
were.
being a top 5-ish team in the SEC. But everybody else, you never knew, right? Like, and now though, it's like, I mean, it's a pretty clear, like right now, like if you had to sort of make the guess, right? If you're projecting a team that's just going to fall off, Alabama's not. They may not be the top overall seed in the tournament, right? But they're not going to fall off to the extent that they're going to be in the play-in game, in the SEC tournament. A&M, they're not going to fall off as long as Buzz is there. Kentucky, I realize they're not getting the success that they want tournament-wise, but they're not going to have the, 9-win season. That was just something that happens once every century, right? Like they're not going to have another 9-win season or whatever it was. And then you keep going. Tennessee's not going to fall off under Rick Barnes. Missouri, I mean, at this point, right? Like, I'm just going down the standings from last year. They may take a step back, but like, I don't know that I expect Missouri to all of a sudden become a 4-win team in the SEC under Dennis Gates, given what he's done. Arkansas, not going anywhere. Auburn's not going to bottom out under Bruce Pearl. Todd Golden's had one of the best off seasons, I think, to me, Arkansas and Florida have done the best job of anybody in the transfer portal so far. So I would assume Florida's about to take a step up. And so you just keep going down the line and just like, man, where do you put teams? Like, again, somebody's got to finish last. Somebody's got to finish 13, 12. There are not a lot of options to jump those upper tier coaches. And so it becomes a challenge. So,
and because of that, you're getting better quality of, talking about the coaching pool, you're getting a better quality of player and a better quality product on the floor for the most part. I know Tennessee fans are waiting for the day that they can advance beyond the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
maybe one day they'll get back, or they'll get to the Final Four, I should say. But it's kind of astonishing, because when I started doing content for Arkansas athletics, really getting into the grind of it, the SEC was just kind of starting to find its way. Mike Anderson was terminated at Arkansas, and it was shortly before that when I started really going in full time doing what I'm doing. And now here we are. It's like, coaching wise, this might be the deepest of all the conferences. They're not in terms of how good the conference is. It's still not a basketball conference here, but I think they're certainly building up to be one of the conferences you think about, between them and the Big 12 and the Big 10. But
you got 2 more teams joining. Like, Texas and Oklahoma are going to be here after next season. Like, I mean, I think I look at it 2 ways there, right? It's like, yeah, they're going to come in. I think Texas will be fine. But like, I mean, those teams are going to have, like we just said, Rodney Terry did a great job at Texas. I think Oklahoma, I don't know. Like, I think everybody's kind of talked about the Porter Mosier Oklahoma thing. Like, I tend to think that's not, a long-term situation necessarily fit wise. And I don't think that's against him as a coach. It's just about fit, right? And so, I mean, how do you think those 2 teams are going to feel coming? Like, well, we played in the Big 12, but like, it's going to be adjustment for them coming in, because like we said, you have to eclipse that group that we just talked about. And there are only so many places you can do that in. I'm not saying that I don't think they can come in and have success, but yeah, I mean, that's where we are now. And so I just think the top tier coaches that have mastered the off-season roster movement and the transfer portal, which obviously Muss is one of those guys, it's just that you're going to have a hard time knocking those guys off from where they're at. And it's just, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. And we still got, wait, you can answer this for me. When does the portal close for basketball?
What is it? It's like May. Hold on, let me find it. I
probably should have asked you that.
I had the date on here, but I want to say it's May the. Maybe somebody can help me out in the comments, but I know it's in May. How about that? The month of May is when
the month of May.
It's somewhere in there. I know I have the date somewhere, and I'm going to find it before we finish this conversation. So I'll leave it at that for now. It's in May.
Yeah. So they got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And I also think Arkansas will go after a big. I think now it's pretty obvious. And
May 11th. There you go.
11th. Okay. All right. Yeah, that sounds right. That's it. There you go. Razorback. Razorback Rock said the 19th? Question mark? Nope.
Man, can you believe Muss has still got about 3 weeks to do this transfer portal thing? My goodness, what is everyone else going to do out there? Holy cow!
And they filled up so
it.
fast. He does not wait. He doesn't wait, man. He wants it done. He wants it done now, and he wants to know what he has to work with and get ready to prep for the 23-24 season. I mean, this has been fast, but it's been one of the craziest off-season basketball seasons I can remember. And I had a hard time keeping up with it because I have tunnel vision. I was so engulfed with Razorback football and going to spring practices and going to the scrimmage and breaking all that down. And I'm getting people asking me about the portal. I'm like, look, I'm doing the best I can, but thank God I've got Patreon supporters who are really keeping up with it, and they're bailing me out. And then I have people like you I can bring on, and you could just help me out. You can just kind of fill all the boxes for me.
If I sent you my notes, I have a running note thing from March the 30th until today on the SEC transfers.
Oh my!
You would look at this and want to just throw your computer out the window because it is unbelievable. Like, I am just scrolling through this thing. I'm like, this is how many guys I have talked about since March the 30th.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable how many guys are moving. Like, but I get it. That's where we are now. And as I always say, Muss is good for business. Keep doing your thing, Muss. So
he's good for business. And so is the portal for what we do.
Yes.
It's great.
Keep transferring. Go wherever you want. I don't care. Come to the SEC. That'd help my life out.
Please,
the 14 teams.
You're making it easier for us.
Yeah.
Would love to know. Let's see. Would love to know. Let me pull this up on the screen. Would love to know how to have the conversation with current roster players about bringing in all these transfers.
I mean, I don't. I mean, every player is different, right? I mean, everybody wants to play. Like, I mean, let's call it what it is. Like, we should never yes, guys will accept roles, but if you tell a guy, hey, how about this? You can play 10 minutes a game or you can play 30 minutes a game. Now, which one do you think they're going to choose?
Yeah.
I know which one I would choose, but you have to have those guys though that can embrace those roles that, but I think it was different early on in the transfer portal era. Like, I say era, I feel like we're talking about,
I know,
2 decades ago, right? And it was like 5 years ago, but it was a little different then, right? Because everybody's adjusting early on. You're like, okay, well, how is this thing going to work? But now I think every player knows how this works. I mean, what are you going to do? You can say, oh, well, don't go get this player. It's going to make our team better, but I don't want this guy. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why guys transfer, right? Yes, there will be guys that are left out. Happens every year, everywhere. I mean, guys who come in the season thinking, hey, my spot's secure. Turns out it's not. And other guys get added, and all of a sudden you're transferring out the next season.
Yep.
That's just how it works, man. So, yeah.
Which is why I was a little surprised that, Ford and Pinion and basically just about everybody but Dunning decided to come back for Arkansas. I was a little surprised by that to some degree. I kind of thought, well, they're going to leave. I mean, but we're seeing how this thing unfolds. And I can't wait to see when the dust settles really I think we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to look like, but we're still missing a key piece. I'm curious to see what they look like from top to bottom. Again, once the dust settles, and not just Arkansas, everybody. And I know for you, because you cover all the SEC. It's going to be, it already has been fascinating. It's going to be even more fascinating to see what everybody has to offer in 2023. So, all right. Well, I do appreciate you guys coming through. This one was open to the public. We didn't make this a Patreon chat. So I appreciate you guys coming through. Make sure you like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Shout out to the sponsors, Direct Service Overhead, the Odd Soul, and the Apex Tattoo Studio. Appreciate those guys. And you, of course, Blake, coming on again. And we got a little silly today, but man, sometimes you just I'm kind of ready to I told my wife, I'm ready to just kind of take the cap off, try and enjoy a weekend as much as I can, and just take a little time off. And she kind of gave me a look like, yeah, right. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I'll be okay when the transfer portal closes for a little while, because I think, again, it's just next 3 weeks, you're still going to have so much movement. I mean,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
not Arkansas wise, because like you said, they've already done the bulk of their work. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of movement, and so I don't know, man. I'll be keeping up with it, and be nice to have a little relaxation. But then what? When we start talking, we're already looking ahead to football season. So it's
Yeah,
like, and
already.
baseball. Don't forget about baseball. I mean,
Yep.
it's just, oh my goodness, yeah, plenty to
Never ending.
discuss. No.
Never ending. 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. and everything in between. That's kind of that's my schedule. So I don't work a 9 to 5. It's just kind of, I go with the flow, and what happens, and I talk about it. So, all right, he's Blake Lovell from Southeastern 14. They always kill it over there. If you guys don't already, you need to go watch their content. It's also good. Not gonna lie, I go and I watch when they're talking about other teams. I go and I get some of my breakdown from them. I try to soak in as much as I can, and they are one of the best to do it. And Blake Lovell's a big, big part of that over there. So you guys make sure you go and subscribe to them. You can follow him on Twitter at the Blake Lovell. So yeah, until next time, Blake, it was a pleasure.
Nope, always enjoy it. Thanks for having me on, Ty. Appreciate you guys as always. I see a lot of familiar faces as usual in the comments, and I do appreciate all the support that you have for us. So yeah, appreciate it always, and we'll talk again here soon.
Sounds good, man. Take it easy.
Thanks.
Oh, see, there it is again. I don't know what. StreamYard, that's all I want you to do. Have an automatic, maybe there is a preset. Maybe I just need to learn how to use StreamYard to where when someone bounces out, I know it just automatically pops over to my next screen, which would be this screen. Okay. Again, yeah, we appreciate Blake for coming on. It's always fun. We had Otis on yesterday. This will be my last live. This was live show number 3. Next week will be, I don't know. It might be more reactionary content, if anything, next week. Next week, we got a lot going on. I won't have the whole week off, but I don't think we'll have a lot of live shows next week. And then we're going to get ready. Good Lord. Transfer portal for football, of course, we know is going on until the 30th of the end of this month. So we'll have some of that to talk about next week. And then, of course, we're going to talk about June. We know they're going to have a lot of visitors for football in the month of June for Razorbacks. We know Sam, that's the month for him, man. We talk about killing it in recruiting. That's the history says June's going to be a great month, as it is for a lot of teams, but especially here at Arkansas. Sam does a really good job. I think overall all year, I think he does a good job, all things considered, and as far as recruiting is concerned. But again, they're going to have a lot of visitors, and I expect a lot of movement as far as commits. Hey, Blake, keep talking hogs, buddy. Let's see, pitching, and let's kick some dog ass. Yeah, they got that starts tonight, game 1 against Georgia. That's right. I forgot to mention that. What's the time? Is it 6 o'clock? I'm going to miss a good portion of this game because we've got soccer and softball. I'm taking my youngest to her soccer game. What time is this game? It's 6 o'clock, right? Yeah, 6 o'clock. There it is. 6 o'clock. It says SEC Network. So not SEC Network Plus, but SEC Network. So maybe you can just pop up SEC Network and have that game come up. But yeah, 3-game series starts tonight against Georgia in Athens, 5 p.m. on Friday. That is beautiful, 5 p.m. And then 1 p.m. on Saturday for what is hopefully a game Arkansas is trying to sweep, another sweep. So, yeah, you guys got my back. Look at that, 6 p.m. That's right. Oh, Landon Rogers. I forgot all about that. Yeah, I just was planning on talking nothing but basketball. But yeah, the Landon Rogers thing, not surprising. I mean, he was not going to crack the 2 deep at any spot, which is kind of crazy because I thought he, of all the receivers that made a pretty decent sized leap from the guys that were returning from last year, he was one of those guys, I think, in that mix between him and Centennial. Of course, Centennial had injuries. We didn't get to see him much at all last year. But talking about all the guys, he was one of those guys that he moved around. They brought him in as a quarterback out of Little Rock. They moved him to, what was it? Was it wide receiver, then tight end, or was it quarterback to tight end to receiver? They moved him around a lot. And once again, when they kind of stuck him at a position and let him develop there, you started to see him kind of climb up. He made some good grabs in spring camp. I kind of walked away thinking maybe he's got a shot at seeing some time on the field this year. And of course, he really, he hits the portal. We'll see what happens there. Remember, Sam did say he didn't think anybody was going to hit the portal, but I think he knew too, like, well, someone will, but it won't be as heavy. You're not going to have the mass exodus that you've had. At least they haven't yet. Knock on wood. You hope no one else leaves, because I think they've got a pretty good group of guys moving forward, getting ready for summer workouts, summer camp, and then of course fall camp when it all really begins. So Chris G says it was tight end to wide receiver. Didn't they move him to wide receiver like twice? And they do the same thing in the secondary, but in the secondary, you have an understanding as to why they do it. You remember they moved Dominic Johnson to tight end? You remember when they did that? What? They did what? They moved him to tight end? At this level, at this point in his career in college? When was that? A year? Was that 2 years ago when they did that? I think it was. A lot of just crazy movement. And sometimes, listen, you're fishing. You're trying to find the right spot. That's what you're trying to do when you're moving guys around. He was one of them, and now he's in the portal. I do think he'll probably play wide receiver wherever he ends up. He wouldn't shock me if he went to UCA or Arkansas State, something like that, maybe stay close to home. But I think he's at that level where he might be able to go to a group of 5 school outside the state and maybe make a little bit of a splash. So, yeah, he's the only one. Technically, yes, he's the only one. The tight end who medically retired. I forget the kid's name. You guys will have to bail me out. But he's in the portal, but he wasn't on the roster. But if you look it up, it shows him from I'm forgetting that kid's name. He played tight end, and he medically retired. And I guess now he's putting himself out there. I guess he wants to try football again. But technically, it's 2. But yeah, of the guys from this current roster that are on the roster, he is the only one. Dax Courtney. That's it. Dax Courtney, who I thought might have a career. I thought he might be a pretty good player, given some time. Yeah, Dax Courtney's the other one. There you go. Look at Chris bailing me out. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Do I expect any more transfers? I know someone's going to ask. At the moment, I have no idea. I would say probably. Come on. Even if Sam thinks no one's going to hit the portal, you think about all the guys that are missing out, or they got pushed back off, out of the 2 deep, maybe even out of the 3 deep. Someone's going to hit the portal, right? So I think naturally, yeah, I feel like there probably will be another player in the portal. I hope not. So, hey, don't forget, go participate. We've got the Discord forum that's up. If you haven't voted already on the community page, you can. Here on YouTube, just click the community tab on Tuss Talk with Ty. It's just asking whether or not you think KJ ends up a Heisman contender, a legit contender. That means the trip to New York. Do you think he does that? And I know it's kind of a who knows, right? With Dan Enos, all the question marks with these new receivers, what's going on at tight end, the offensive line, a lot of moving parts, different offense, what have you. But at the end of the day, you guys tell me, do you think he is a legitimate Heisman contender? Again, meaning he gets that trip to New York. So we have that questionnaire or the forum, Tuss Talk forum on Discord, and we have the poll here on YouTube. So you could do both. My reasoning, and I'm going to tell you guys really quick, this will be the last thing I have on there. If you go look at that poll and you go look at the if I could pull it up here. If you look at the comment section, so many buttons you got to click. So ridiculous. If you look down the comment section, I have it. We're already, look at the votes. Doing good on the votes. Ask yourself this before voting. KJ putting up Donkey Kong numbers, question mark. Can you do that? Can Arkansas get to the 9 to 11 win threshold? Again, I'm talking about 9 to 11 winning threshold, meaning can he get 9, 10, maybe 11 wins? Not him, but the team. O-line and skill position players do their part. Do they come through for him? Does someone in the wide receiver, does someone out of that room step up? Maybe to Slaw, Centenia, right? One of those receivers step up. Offensive line, O-line and skill position players do their part. Survive brutal SEC schedule? Question mark. Can KJ have big plays? Have big plays in big games? And then the final and probably one of the most important parts of this: multiple Heisman moments. And Mark Rogers talked about this when I was on his show. Maybe what a big Heisman moment is, like maybe against a ranked top 5, top 10 opponent. Maybe it's Alabama. Maybe it's, I don't know, throw someone else in there that might be ranked that high. LSU, maybe. Who knows what Jimbo Fisher does with Bobby Petrino at A&M. Have a hard time, even with Petrino, I have a hard time buying into them because it's Jimbo Fisher and it's the A&M Aggies. Maybe he has that moment where he leads them on a final drive with a minute and a half left to go in the game, and they win the game because he makes multiple big plays, and maybe he dives into the end zone as the clock is ticking down. Those are Heisman moments. Can he have those moments? And listen, when you're at Arkansas, it's an uphill climb. Let's just be real. We all know that this is true. Right? Darren should have been a Heisman one of those 2 years. He wasn't. If he was at Alabama, ask yourself, would he have won the Heisman? Of course he would have. If he was at LSU, USC, Texas, name any school of that caliber, Ohio State, of course he's going to win the Heisman, not just be a contender. It's an uphill climb naturally for a school like Arkansas until they can prove otherwise that they belong there, right? Until they can up that reputation. And I'm not saying they can't. We know they have the money, the support, the regional support, fan support, the dedication to the sport. I think some of the most rabid fans across the country, they have it all there. It's just about, finally being able to recruit at a really high level and put together a fantastic product on the field on both sides of the ball. That's what it's going to take to up that respect level, right? Until you're there, it's going to always be an uphill climb for someone at Arkansas to even be a contender for the Heisman. Remember, we did the same thing with Ryan Mallett going into his second year. We thought, oh, he's going to be a Heisman. He's the guy. He's that former 5-star, big arm coming here from Michigan. Of course, he had to sit that 1 year out. Worked out perfectly, though, with Petrino, didn't it? But even with the wins, he had some pretty big moments. He also had some bad moments. The interception against Alabama, that always will stand out. When was that? 2010? That defensive end backed off into coverage, and Ryan Mallett threw it right to him to end the game. Oh, brutal. But he also had some big moments, had some big wins. Still not enough to even send him to New York. Not even enough, if I remember right. I don't think he even finished top 10 on that list. They have a whole list. To me, a contender is someone who goes to New York. That's a legit Heisman contender. Arkansas doesn't have many of those. Darren McFadden's it. So it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill climb. For anyone on Twitter who took what I said as, well, KJ sucks, clearly, you didn't read the post. I think very highly of KJ. Some people in the thread said that he's a first-round draft pick. I don't know that I buy that. He's not even looked at as someone who'd get drafted this year. If he's for sure a first-round pick next year, you got to tell me what you're seeing, because no one else thinks he's even draftable this year. Not saying he won't be. I think he gets drafted. I do. I think he's someone, and with Enos's help in this offense, it's going to help him. It's going to elevate his game, and it's going to elevate his attractiveness to these NFL front offices, to these GMs, to these head coaches, to the offensive coordinators in the league. This is going to help elevate that, right? Being under Enos in this system, hopefully, if all goes according to plan. But again, it's an uphill battle at a place like Arkansas. Now, if we're talking golden spikes in baseball, yeah, that's a different story, right? Talking about accolades in basketball with, now that Arkansas basketball is back, that's a different story. Football's just not there yet. Not saying they can't get there, because I do think they can. It might be when I'm when I'm a little older, when I'm maybe into my late 40s, 50s, whatever, that might have to be the case. But it's going to take some time to get Arkansas elevated to that level of respect. But they're not there yet. And until they are, it's going to further hinder your ability to get the accolades you want in terms of like the Heisman, right? Listen, Doak Walker Award winners, candidates, they've had those. Of course, Darren McFadden won it twice, back-to-back years. But boy, it's something else to get to make that trip to New York for the Heisman. It just takes, man, it takes a lot. And for Arkansas, they need the stars and the planets to align just right, you know. So, or you have just an absolute freaking nature like Darren McFadden. So, all right, that is it. That's final. If DMAC couldn't win it, it's never happening here. Just saying. I can't argue. Bobby, I'm not going to die on any hill there. I'm not, but you're not exactly wrong either. If Darren couldn't win it either of those times, yeah. Now, again, I'm talking about KJ just being a contender. Can he make the trip to New York? Not whether or not he wins it. Can he even just get on the plane? Can he get invited to New York? I still think it's an uphill climb. So, yeah. All right. I do appreciate you guys. I'll see you next week. A lot still left, you know, tomorrow. Of course, I think Arkansas is going to add. If you're a Patreon supporter, you're already well aware of this. If you're in our Discord and you're a Patreon supporter, but I do feel pretty good about Arkansas gaining a couple commits tomorrow. So, all right, we're going to hang our hat there. Boom. We're done. We're done. Can I do that right there? Will you stay? Will you stay? Oh, look at that. Look at that. It worked. There you go. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Be good.